You know, but even walking out there saying, okay, I dealt with a few things in my life, but walking out that door, I wasn't a man saying, okay, I have confessed everything I've ever done. I don't have a clue about everything I've ever done. So when it talks about confession, it's not something that can almost drive you internally insane thinking about, do I have all this done? But it is more a state or an attitude. Now, I want to read to you, and I always like to go ahead and turn to it myself instead of just quoting it, and there's a reason, so that you see that it's actually in the Bible. It's Isaiah 66, verse 2. He says, "For my hands made all these things, thus all these things came into being, declares the Lord." He's saying, I don't need anything from anyone. God's not served by human hands. "But to this one I will look, to him who is humble and contrite of spirit and who trembles at my word." This gives me more hope for the Christian life than almost any other verse in the Bible, with the exception of those that talk specifically about the finished work of Christ. And why is that? I'll tell you why. If it said here that God would look to me with favor and compassion because I perfectly obeyed His law, there would be no hope for me. Or if He said that He looked to me because my heart was always right, and He looked to me because my heart was always passionately on fire for Him, there would be no hope for me. But this is what He says, I will look to the one, and that means look with favor. I will look to the one who is humble and contrite of spirit and who trembles at my word. What are you to do in light of the word? So many people are always talking about, with regard to the word, we need to obey it, and that is true. But more, the first step is tremble before it. You see, when you've got this Bible open and God begins to point out sin in your life, the first thing is don't be discouraged. This is not an executioner or a prosecutor pointing out your sin in order to use it to condemn you. This is the one who is for you. And He's pointing out your sin because He loves you and He wants to see you healed. He wants joy in you. You say, oh, there you go with the emotion again. Have you not read? The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy. C.S. Lewis said one time, I think joy may be the primary evidence that one has truly come to know the Lord. After years of driving myself in the ground, trying to earn the love of God and be holy enough to be loved, it almost led me to a nervous breakdown. And one day, the love of God was shed abroad in my heart like something like a thunder from heaven. And I'm happy, not because of my performance, but because of His finished work on my behalf. And when He points out sin as someone who loves me and is for me and will not allow me to be condemned on that day. He will stand up and raise a standard against every flood of Satan that tries to drag me down into the pit of despair. Satan will stand up there and accuse and accuse and accuse, and then God comes like a king riding a mighty mount with a mighty standard and sets me free. So when we talk about sin, believers, always believers, so many believers, when I preach this, I come down from the pulpit and they say, oh, you really stepped on my toes. And I say, well, then I did a terrible job because that was not my intention. It's to show you that there is a lover of your soul who loves you more than you could ever imagine. You can't know God's love because you've never seen anything like that before. There's no example. You look to mothers, fathers, grandparents, wherever you want to look. A soldier dying for his men on the field. You know nothing of the love of God because nothing compares. And that's why you have so much trouble. Your problem is not in believing God to do a miracle or to raise the dead. Your problem is His love is so great you can hardly believe it to be true. So when I talk about God wanting to expose your sin, it is not to kill you. It's to save you and set you free. A true believer will recognize that. If we confess our sins, He is faithful and righteous. Now, the fact that we sin shows that we are neither faithful or righteous. And I think maybe that's why John used these words. He's trying to tell you something. Do you know why you have hope, believer? Because God's not like you. And He's not like me. And He's not like those who would judge you or destroy you or cast you out. You see, where men are neither faithful nor righteous. He is both. He is faithful to fulfill all His promises concerning you because He is righteous. He always does that which is right, that which is conformed to His nature. You can trust Him. Now look at this. He says He is faithful and He is righteous to forgive us our sins. But not only to forgive, you need something much more than forgiveness. You move in the realm of forgiveness, almost as just positionally and almost legally. But you need to understand something. There's more offered here than forgiveness of sin. There is cleansing of sin. And not just before Him, the cleansing of your conscience. How can I describe this to you? Let's say a man of God, a true man of God, one that this happens. A man of God commits a heinous sin. Oh, if you've walked with God and you have known His presence, and then to commit a heinous crime before Him. I have been told that a man of God will come close to losing his mind.